Hey everyone! In this video we're going to be learning about finding the volume of cones. And I'm actually going to keep this video really short because there isn't much to it beyond what we've already learned. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So in the last video we learned about finding volume of cylinders. So you'll recall that a cylinder looks like, see if I can get my pen to work, looks like this. And the volume of a cylinder is equal to pi times the radius of the cylinder squared times the height. Now, what's interesting about cones is that cones use this same formula, but just divided by 3. Essentially, a cone is 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder with the same radius of the base. Now, what's different about it is a cone only has one base. So let's move down here to one of these cones, and let's see if I can draw in a little dotted line to make the circle on the bottom here. I hope you guys can kind of picture that. And here's the center of that base, and we have a radius, which is half the diameter of the base. Let's say that that radius was 5 inches, and then we have a height from the base up to the tip of the cylinder. Excuse me, up to the tip of the cone. Let's say that this was 15 inches. If this was a cylinder like this, and it had a radius of 5 inches, and it had a height of 15 inches, we would use volume is equal to pi times the radius, which is 5, squared times the height, which is 15. Well, for our cone, we're going to do the same thing. This is pi times the radius, which is 5, times the height, which is, the radius, which is 5 squared, times the height, which is 15, and then it's 1/3 of that, or divided by 3. So let's calculate this one. So we have a radius of 5, which we're going to square and make 25. I'll move down here a little bit. So volume equals pi r squared. 5 squared is 25, so times 25 times 15 divided by 3. I'm going to do pi times 25 times 15, and I get 1,177.5, so volume equals 1,177.5, and that's all divided by 3. Now this top number in the numerator would be the volume of a cylinder with that base, but this is a cone with that base, so we're going to divide this by 3, and we get the volume is equal to 392.5, roughly that. Remember that pi is an irrational number that goes on forever, so it gives us a funky decimal, but it's about 392.5. This would be inches that we were working in, so inches cubed, cubic inches. Let's try doing another one here, but in this one, let me draw my little dotted line here. Oh, that's good enough. Here's the center. And let's do this. On this one, we have a height, but we don't have a radius. So let's say that our height is 12 centimeters, and let's say that our radius is r. We don't know it, but we do know that the volume of this cone is equal to 280 cubic centimeters. Could we find the radius? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to write out our equation, which is volume is equal to pi r squared, that's the area of the base, times the height, divided by 3. So we'll plug in what we know. We know a volume, so I'm going to put 280 is equal to pi times the radius squared times the height, which is 12, divided by 3. Now, this may look a little bit confusing with this 3 on the bottom, having a denominator here. But really what we can do to make it go away is just right away, I'll switch colors here, right away we can multiply that 3 on both sides, and that 3 disappears. So now I have 3 times 280 on the left, which gives me 840, and that's equal to pi times the radius squared times 12. Now, to make this 12 go away, I can just divide both sides by 12. 840 divided by 12 gives me 70. So I have 70 is equal to pi times the radius squared. I can now divide off pi. So I'll divide both sides by pi. You can use the pi button on your calculator, or you could use 3.14 if you don't have a pi button. So 70 divided by pi gives me 22.29 is equal to r squared. And now we just need to take the square root of both sides to cancel out that squared. And so the square root of r squared is just r, and we have to do it to both sides. So the square root of 22.29 is going to give us our radius. And when I do that on my calculator here, I get an answer of about 4.7 for a radius. So I hope that makes sense. It's a pretty quick lesson because we already knew how to find the volume of a cylinder, and the volume of a cone is just the same thing as the volume of a cylinder, except it's 1/3 of the value of a cylinder with the same base. And one way that I remember that, this isn't mathematically accurate necessarily in my picture here. This isn't a scientific way of thinking of this, but it's just a way that I think of it in my head to remember the formula. I think that the formula for a cylinder is easy. Here's my cylinder. Let me draw it out. So the cylinder's easy. It's the area of the base, right? It's the area of this circle base, which we know is pi r squared, and then it's times the height, right? So that part's easy to me. I can remember the area of the base, and I can multiply it by the height. When you think of a cone, what I think of is, here, I'll draw my half circle here. I think of a cone inside of a cylinder, and then it looks to me like I have an upside down cone kind of on either side here. And so I think of it as just 3 different cones, 1, 2, 3, that make up a cylinder with the same base. So that's one way that I remember to myself that a cone is 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder with the same base as that cone. It's just a visual way for me to think about it and remember what to divide by. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out and ask them, and I'll turn you loose to work on the practice, and I will see you in the next video.